Aluminum alloy melts at 1,221 Fahrenheit. Wildfires burn at 800 Fahrenheit. These cars melted. Trees next to them, untouched. Plastic bins, intact. This wasn't fire, this was a weapon. Look at the evidence they tried to bury. In the aftermath of the California devastation, officials painted a picture of natural catastrophe, high winds, dry brush, and global climate change. But when the smoke cleared, the details did not fit the story. Look closely at the wreckage. A melted engine block, reduced to a puddle of warped aluminum, sits directly beside a perfectly preserved pine tree, its needles still green and moist. The thermal dynamics are impossible. A massive wildfire burns broadly and consumes everything uniformly, leaving ash and char across a wide and predictable area. This devastation was surgical. The pattern of destruction was not horizontal. It was focused and directional, delivered from above, leaving bizarre, hyper-localized zones of destruction. The structures that were destroyed often had the telltale signs of extreme, rapid heating, far beyond the duration or intensity of a typical firestorm, including concrete reduced to crumbling powder and ceramics fused into unnatural glass forms that could only be formed at incredible temperatures. The narrative of the natural wildfire is the first lie, carefully constructed to mask a violent technological event and shepherd the world away from the truth, ensuring the official story was the only one that survived, becoming the accepted reality. Our investigation began with the simple search for objective thermal data, the raw numbers they could not manipulate at the time of the event, and the forensic evidence that fire agencies deliberately overlooked. We found reports that had been immediately and universally rejected by mainstream media and official channels, reports that vanished from public view within hours, replaced by standardized governmental analyses that simply repeated the established wildfire narrative. These reports, often produced by professional structural engineers and independent fire analysts, showed isolated heat signatures of well over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, temperatures only achievable in specialized industrial furnaces or through focused energy, not 800-degree brush fires. The cars, the concrete, the metallic debris, they showed evidence of having been hit by a non-combustible superheated beam. This beam delivered instantaneous energy, vaporizing metals while sparing adjacent organic material, defying every principle of fire science and basic thermodynamics. The implication was horrific. A silent hand had selected its targets from the atmosphere, applying power with terrifying precision, leaving only the impossible facts behind, facts that demanded a technological explanation. We uncovered early preliminary documents, drafted in the chaotic hours after the disaster, that mentioned experimental energy testing near the affected zone, citing pre-scheduled tests that had abruptly gone dark and logs that showed unauthorized power surges originating far outside the normal grid. Within 3 days, every single one of those documents had been officially reclassified under the guise of weather event monitoring, a generic term meant to neutralize any genuine scrutiny and dismiss technical inquiries as simply environmental failures. The paper trail was immediately sterilized, but the initial errors remained buried in obscure log files, accessed via a difficult and risky vulnerability deep within a seldom-used government server. A few cryptic references remained, like breadcrumbs. One paper, found hidden deep in a municipal server that had been slated for wiping, contained a single, unredacted page listing a specific Department of Defense project code linked directly to the disaster area, a code related to strategic targeting systems and orbital platforms with offensive capabilities. It was the first concrete thread in the elaborate fabric of the lie. We realized that searching for the truth was no longer research. It was a desperate race against a secret society of power. The moment we tried to verify that code using secured search protocols, our investigation hit a wall. An immediate, unnerving system error, lockout screen took over, freezing our system entirely and attempting to initiate a remote wipe that would erase every trace of our work. It was followed a second later by a sudden, untraceable message flashing briefly across the screen. Do not proceed. This was not an accident. This was confirmation. This was the moment the conspiracy stepped out of the shadows and directly into our lives, letting us know they were aware of our presence and that the consequences for continuing would be absolute, immediate, and potentially final. Subscribe for immediate updates on the truth. The message, "Do not proceed," was treated not as a warning to retreat, but as the clearest confirmation of truth we had received. They were watching. They were protecting the secret defined by that project code. A secret worth silencing anyone over, including entire investigative teams. We pivoted, leaving the physical evidence behind to trace the bureaucratic cover-up, moving our attention to the internal mechanisms of deception and the infrastructure of the lie designed to insulate the powerful. The scale of the obfuscation was staggering. We accessed a vast, anonymous digital archive, focusing only on the data marked missing or destroyed related to the event, finding entire government repositories purged of relevant data within hours of the official disaster declaration, an action that required coordination at the highest possible levels, spanning multiple agencies and oversight committees operating in lockstep silence. Official incident reports were found, but every page shared sequential, identical redaction stamps meticulously applied as though a low-ranking operative had simply hit the "censor all" button on a template. These redactions were not random. They were surgically applied to remove historical context and any mention of experimental programs, particularly those dating back to the late 1990s and onward, covering 2 decades of clandestine development and refinement. The consistency of the censorship suggested a single, centralized command structure issuing the orders, one that knew exactly what details needed to be scrubbed from history before the public could even formulate the right questions. The official story had been sanded clean of inconvenient truths, presenting a smooth, false surface designed to repel curiosity and lull the public into acceptance. The financial trail was equally unnerving. We tracked a series of shell companies, set up only weeks before the disaster, used to purchase and immediately bulldoze the most heavily damaged properties, often paying owners double the value in rapid cash settlements contingent on immediate silence and non-disclosure agreements that bordered on total legal constraint and lifelong secrecy. These companies were often registered in obscure offshore locations and were dissolved just as quickly as they appeared, leaving no trace of their ownership or ultimate purpose beyond the single transaction of acquiring land. The speed of the destruction was not about cleanup, it was about the erasure of evidence. They were eliminating the only remaining physical witnesses to the event, the structures themselves. But the biggest cover-up wasn't what they destroyed. It was who they silenced. We knew we had to find a voice from the inside, a witness who could break the wall of bureaucracy and risk everything to speak the name of the weapon. We then came across subtle but profound historical contradictions in official testimony. Different government agencies gave wildly conflicting data regarding wind speed and ignition points. No 2 stories matched. One report claimed 50-mile-per-hour gusts, citing a nearby weather station. Another claimed near-zero wind velocity, citing aerial reconnaissance footage that was immediately sealed and classified top secret. The discrepancies were a sign of panic and uncoordinated lying. It pointed to a hastily coordinated effort to manufacture a consensus that was not based on reality, a consensus designed to point toward nature and away from technology. The investigation required a guide, someone deep within the system, tired of the lies, and willing to risk everything to expose the inner workings of the cover-up. We made contact with an anonymous source we named the Archivist, a cautious individual who provided a coded snippet of a meeting transcript. The transcript was muffled, heavily distorted, but one key phrase stood out, repeated 3 times. Non-kinetic deployment. Non-kinetic. Not involving conventional explosives or combustion, confirming the targeted energy delivery system. The term itself was a technical euphemism for extreme, directed power, designed to confuse auditors and obfuscate reality. It confirmed what the melted cars had suggested, an advanced energy weapon. The dramatic anxiety peaked during a rapid, anxiety-inducing montage comparing the official weather reports touting extreme high winds with independent amateur footage taken during the peak of the fire events. The footage showed unnaturally still air. The smoke rose straight up. There was no gale, no firestorm. The fire itself was not spreading. It was appearing in isolated pockets, then vanishing instantly, only to reappear 100 yards away, perfectly demonstrating a targeted strike pattern with zero environmental contagion. The lie was exposed. The meeting snippet provided the next critical lead. The last confirmed location of the non-kinetic deployment hardware, according to the transcript, was a specific, geographically isolated, officially decommissioned, but physically secure communications relay station, far from any major population center. This was where the paper trail ended and the physical hunt began. The communications relay station was a haunting sight. On the surface, it appeared civilian: a chain-link fence, a small satellite dish, a single guard booth, a facade of normalcy designed to fool casual observers. But the perimeter defenses were military-grade, designed for deep penetration protection, utilizing infrared sensors and silent drone patrols that flew rigid, overlapping patterns only visible to thermal imaging, ensuring absolute isolation. The foundations were the real giveaway. They were massive, unnaturally thick slabs of concrete, clearly built for housing extremely heavy, vibrating, or high-power equipment, not simple communications gear. We knew immediately we were standing on top of something enormous, something far exceeding its supposed purpose, built to withstand immense pressure or contained energy discharge from a massive piece of hardware. We obtained outdated architectural blueprints of the site, smuggled out of the local planning office years ago. They quickly revealed subterranean levels not listed on any public permits or utility records, indicating classified construction that bypassed all civilian oversight. These levels were deep, shielded by thick steel plating and Faraday-like cages to contain or repel massive electromagnetic pulses, and were labyrinthine in their complexity, suggesting a continuous, guarded operation that had been running for years. The details were undeniable. Specialized cooling conduits and extremely thick power lines rated for electrical output far exceeding anything needed for a standard relay station, capable of channeling energy equivalent to a small metropolitan power grid. If this equipment wasn't cooling a relay station, then the power ratings suggested it was strong enough to boil the air itself, and we were about to walk right into its heart, the nerve center of the global threat. This was not infrastructure. It was power delivery for a mechanism of mass destruction, a terrestrial tuning fork disguised as a public utility station, controlling the fire from the sky. Inside the compound, near the main tower, we found small, discreetly poured concrete pads that contained specific triangulation markers, metal discs embedded in the concrete, precisely aligned with astronomical north and showing complex calibration scarring from repeated adjustments. They were too precise, too carefully placed to be simple survey points. They suggested a focused targeting or calibration capability, mapping out potential engagement zones that extended far beyond the local area, potentially across entire continents, using the satellite array as a mirror. Using specialized sensitive equipment, we recorded low-frequency electromagnetic radiation pulses emanating from the supposedly decommissioned basement. These pulses were cyclical, powerful, and unnatural. A silent, rhythmic thrumming that vibrated through the foundation and into the surrounding soil, indicating the massive generator was still running. This system was not inactive. It was idling, waiting for its next command, consuming massive amounts of background power to maintain readiness. During a tense, high-risk surveillance window, we found a small, forgotten maintenance tag on a ventilation unit. The date was recent. The internal component label read, Waveform Generator Housing, 03. Waveform, Directed Energy. The names changed, but the purpose remained the same. The air in that basement felt chemically cold, humming with dormant immense power, making the tiny hair on the back of our necks stand up. We had found the heart of the weapon's terrestrial control system, the keyboard for a satellite weapon, hidden in plain sight beneath a facade of rusted metal and official neglect. Comment below if you've seen similar anomalies. We were forced to quickly exit, narrowly avoiding detection by an unmarked security patrol operating on an irregular schedule. using silence and sophisticated counter-surveillance gear to melt back into the wilderness and erase our digital signature, leaving no trace of our unauthorized entry. The fear was real, but the mission was paramount. Back at our safe location, the final breakthrough occurred. We deciphered the coordinates hidden in the triangulation markers. They did not point to a target within the state or even the continent. They pointed to a specific, high-altitude orbiting satellite listed only on an obscure International Defense Registry, a registry few outside of sovereign military control ever accessed, dedicated to non-conventional strategic assets and hidden away from public satellite trackers. This was the moment the danger shifted from a local cover-up to a global, existential, high-level threat, a weapon circling the planet with impunity, ready to strike anywhere at any time with a silent beam of energy. The investigation escalated into the terrifying reality of space-based weaponry. We now had the target coordinates and the physical location of the ground-based control system. This was the point of no return. There was no going back to normal life or pretending the world was safe. We presented the satellite imagery and orbital data, maintaining a calm, confident, measured tone, allowing the objective facts to speak for the terror of the situation. The satellite, nicknamed Prometheus on the Defense Registry, matched the output requirements revealed by the relay station's power lines. It was a massive, highly efficient directed energy weapon (DEW) platform, capable of focusing gigawatts of power onto a target the size of a single car from 500 miles up, delivering the energy equivalent of a controlled lightning strike from a clear sky. The core evidence was devastating. A side-by-side comparison of the satellite's power output requirements and the physical reality of the melted cars. The numbers matched precisely, confirming the theoretical physics behind the damage. We created a detailed slow-motion rendering illustrating how a focused microwave beam, delivered from orbit, could create the distinct, isolated heat signature and the non-combustible damage observed on the ground. This was the smoking gun, a mechanism capable of turning aluminum into liquid while leaving wood untouched. A signature weapon of immense power. The political contradiction was stark. The sudden massive budget increase for a secret program called atmospheric defense immediately preceding the fires. The money had paid for Prometheus. It was a black budget project hidden in plain sight, funded by an annual appropriation designed to avoid all congressional oversight and public scrutiny, ensuring that no one could ask about the true nature of the satellite. The climax of the investigation arrived with the final piece of anonymous proof. A short video clip, delivered via an untraceable channel, of a successful test firing of the DEW over a remote, uninhabited desert area. The energy signature was identical to the one seen in the California wreckage, a momentary flash of impossible heat that vaporized the target test vehicle instantly, leaving only a perfect circle of scorch mark. Then came the chilling, immediate realization that redefined the entire event. The DEW was not targeting the ground. The DEW was targeting an airborne drone or a military asset from a rival global power, and the California towns were simply collateral damage in a higher-level military engagement, a calibration failure, a wind shift, or a deliberate warning shot in a shadow war between powerful nations. The citizens were incinerated not because they were the target, but because they were in the way, a tragic consequence of a global power play conducted with total disregard for human life. The realization wasn't just chilling, it explained the entire cover-up, the urgency, and the centralized censorship, because what they did next proved this wasn't an accident at all. The discovery was too volatile to keep contained. As we began the final encryption of the data, the laptop holding the satellite data suddenly overheated and ceased function in a puff of smoke. The thermal shutdown was immediate and total. A remote, untraceable switch activated across thousands of miles, proving our systems were compromised at the deepest level by an unseen digital force. They were not just watching anymore. They were engaging. We were forced to immediately go dark and relocate, ditching all electronic devices and confirming that they, the powerful forces of secrecy, were actively monitoring and neutralizing the investigation in real time. We had proof, but we had lost the primary storage and our operational safety, becoming instant fugitives. We are now in a secure, undisclosed location, speaking in a strained but determined voice. The backdrop is minimal, emphasizing the gravity of the portable evidence. A single encrypted USB drive containing everything, the sole surviving copy of the truth, stored deep in a physically shielded vault. The immediate threat level is not passing, it is permanent. We are now ghosts in the machine, relying only on analog security and manual contact for survival, knowing that every communication risks exposure. The final chapter is about ensuring survival for the truth. The evidence is being sent to multiple, secure, international nodes across multiple continents, leveraging the power of distributed exposure to ensure global dissemination and make the secret impossible to contain. A coordinated, simultaneous release will ensure that no single power can bury it entirely, forcing the global conversation into the light and demanding answers. We return to the political aftermath, focusing on the sheer silence from global powers regarding the unprecedented destruction. No outcry, no investigation, only platitudes about climate change and the need for new development. The media silence was deafening. A coordinated global agreement to ignore the catastrophic technological signature for the sake of political stability. The final analysis focused on the concept of signature warfare, a weapon designed specifically to mimic a natural disaster to hide its true use and prevent retaliation, creating plausible deniability on a global scale. They did not want the world to think it was war. They wanted the world to think it was nature, an uncontrollable force that requires government control and massive financial aid packages, which they then used to rebuild and further conceal the operational sites and strengthen their control over the narrative, profiting from the devastation they caused. We then revealed the narrative of the true objective. The DEW was targeting an asset owned by a rival global power, turning the California tragedy into a hidden act of economic military sabotage disguised as a domestic disaster. This was a message sent using a city as the envelope, showing their enemy the terrible precision of their new technology while maintaining absolute secrecy. The fire served the clear political purpose of hiding that act of sabotage, allowing the perpetrators to claim zero responsibility and shift blame onto environmental concerns, thus avoiding global conflict, while still achieving their strategic goals. The final piece of evidence came in a cryptic text message received from the archivist moments before they went silent, a final, desperate transmission, the last gasp of a truth-teller. The message read simply, "The weapon is not fire. The fire is a distraction. The fire was the cover story they wanted us to chase, while the real action was happening unseen in the upper atmosphere, a terrifying game of chess played with energy beams. The immediate physical investigation is concluded. We survived. We exposed the weapon. This information cost us everything: our location, our identity, and our safety. But this is the final broadcast from the dark, because the truth, once loose, is its own weapon, more hazardous than any beam from the sky. But the most unsettling question remains: who is capable of turning the sky into a weapon, and why were they willing to sacrifice their own citizens to keep the secret and advance their dark agenda against a rival power? The physical evidence, the melted cars, and the foundation anomalies will eventually be cleared away, but the truth remains: they never stopped testing. They just changed the target. The evidence is undeniable. An immense, coordinated operation was launched, not just to conceal a weapon, but to obliterate the memory of its use, leaving us standing on the shaky ground of a manufactured reality. A world where our governments hold the power of the stars and can erase evidence at will. If you believe some truths are too important to remain buried, like this video, share it immediately with those who question the official story, and subscribe to join the only investigation that dares to look up. What part of the signature warfare evidence confirmed the conspiracy for you? Leave your analysis in the comments below, because even if they successfully scrub the debris, the chilling fact remains: the sky is still operational, and the next target is unknown. The more people who see this, the safer the truth is. Thanks for watching.